President Biden's re-election campaign is starting to take shape just one day after he officially launched his bid for 2024.
And as expected, Biden has tapped Julie Chavez Rodriguez to be his campaign manager. Quentin Fulks, who is head of Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock's campaign, will serve as Biden's principal deputy campaign manager. He's also announced his campaign's national co-chairs. But now comes a new challenge, getting voters excited about a second term and easing concerns over his age and a possible rematch with former President Donald Trump. NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns is in the battleground state of Pennsylvania with more on voters' reaction. So, Dasha, you have been speaking to voters, getting a feel for their reaction here. What did they tell you?
Hey, Lindsay, good morning from Sunrise Diner in Bucks County, a swing county in Pennsylvania. We've been bopping around this area. Last night we were at a brewery talking to folks, and no surprise, a range of opinions here in this area. Look, the sense that we got was not a whole ton of enthusiasm. That is going to be a major hurdle for the president to get that excitement from voters to turn out to get to the polls. Of course, it's early days, but we did get a sense of a sort of meh feeling from a lot of voters, especially those in the younger generation. Some of the older voters we talked to, though, were either somewhat excited or optimistic, or at the very least kind of realistic about the fact that there's not really an alternative at this point. Take a listen to some of what we heard.
I think he needs to finish it. He started. He had a lot to do when he took over for the previous president. I won't even say his name.
I think for people, at least my generation, it's not what we're excited about.
Why not?
He just seems very institutional, corporate, like by the book, by the system. Not going to really shake anything up.
But when I asked even those who weren't particularly enthusiastic about whether or not they would turn out and vote for Biden in the end, they all said yes. So that is certainly something to consider, and I think for Democrats, an encouraging sign.
Dasha, Biden will turn 82 just a couple weeks after Election Day. Did age come up when you're talking to voters out there?
Absolutely. I mean, tracking with the polling that NBC News released this week, that was a huge concern. That's been a concern, by the way, for Republicans as well when it comes to former President Trump. Overall, that's something that I hear from voters on both sides of the aisle. For older folks, age was a little bit less of a concern. Again, for the younger generations, they were, I think, hoping that there would be some fresh blood at this point in the Democratic Party. Take a listen.
He's in good shape, and, presidents get excellent health care. And I think if something were to happen with him, I think we can fall back, to the vice president, who I think is quite capable in her own right.
Definitely age, it's not super in touch with, such a large percentage of his base.
And that's, again, something that the campaign is going to have to focus on, showing that he can do this job, showing him in those contexts of really being out there campaigning and showing folks that he's up to it.
So, Dasha, from the economy to abortion rights, immigration, what are some of the key issues that are at play this election cycle?
Well, we're mostly talking to Democrats here, and for them, it's reproductive rights was definitely at the top of the list. That's something that's extremely concerning to folks. Also, for the younger generation, climate, and that's something that they've really been frustrated with the current administration on. They feel like that's not being addressed enough. They really feel a sense of urgency, and they feel like the older generations aren't focused enough on their future when it comes to the environment. Overall, though, Lindsay, I got a sense of sort of a bit of a bleak outlook at the idea that there might be this repeat of a Biden versus Trump matchup again. They sort of feel like they didn't think that this would happen once more, and they're not feeling too optimistic about what that says about the state of affairs in our country right now.
All right, Dasha, thank you for that reporting.
Now to Capitol Hill, where House Republicans are set to hold a key vote on the debt ceiling today. That could have wide-ranging implications for the national and global economy. So let's bring in NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin to dig in. Julie, good morning. So House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says he is confident this bill will pass, but some of his GOP House members have reservations, right? What can we expect today?
Yeah, good morning, Zinkley. Well, reservations to the point of Congressman Matt Gaetz, who opposes this bill, at least for now, saying he's not even sure if they will get a vote today because of how many holdouts there are. Take a listen to Speaker McCarthy, though, urging his party to move forward and saying this is the only option they really got.
This bill is going to help face our challenges here at home. It sends a clear message to the American people that we're investing in safety, health, and the future of America. And in our bill, it will limit the future growth of government, not cutting it, but limit how fast we grow. It will have savings, that it will claw back money that we have already appropriated.
Now, here's what's so notable, not to get too in the weeds, but McCarthy promised he wouldn't make any changes to this bill. Yet overnight, the Rules Committee, which kind of decides the parameters of what is taken up on the floor, they did make a few small tweaks as McCarthy hopes to get some of those holdouts, including Congressman Gaetz, on his side to vote for the thing today.
And Julie, I wonder, what are we hearing from the president about this GOP plan and negotiations?
Yeah, look, President Biden is not excited to sit down with Republicans and talk about the debt limit because he's repeatedly said he does not want that to be done in conjunction with basically talking about future spending cuts, withholding the debt limit hostage, he says. He says it's the responsibility of both parties who accumulated this nearly $32 trillion in debt. Republicans, however, hoping that if they can pass this bill, this will at least get them to the negotiating table. Take a listen to what Biden had to say about all of this.
Speaker of the House went to Wall Street last week, proposed huge cuts. They'd rather see kids and seniors struggle, people on Medicaid lose their health care, veterans lose access to doctor's visits.
Pay attention, Zinkley, to how difficult this process was for McCarthy to even get this bill passed, which is still unclear if it will be. Remember, he only has about a 4-vote margin he can lose. Right now, according to Congressman Gaetz, there are somewhere upwards of 8 members who are leaning against this bill. And that doesn't just include members of the hard right Freedom Caucus. That includes the moderates, too. And by the way, some of the changes made overnight make adjustments to green energy and biofuels. Congresswoman Nancy Mace told me last week she was already concerned with the changes the bill makes to some of those key provisions.
I mean, all eyes on this one, and President Biden and House Speaker McCarthy still very far apart on the issue. Julie Sirkin, thank you so much.
The federal trial for the civil lawsuit brought against former President Trump by magazine writer E. Jean Carroll continues today. Members of the jury were selected during yesterday's proceedings, followed by opening statements from both sides. Carroll is accusing Trump of following her into a dressing room and raping her nearly 30 years ago. Trump has denied the allegation, saying he never met Carroll. And this trial comes just 3 weeks after the former president was indicted for allegedly making hush money payments to adult actress Stormy Daniels. Trump denies those accusations as well. The president will not face any jail time if found liable in this civil lawsuit. NBC News correspondent Ron Allen joins us now from outside the U.S. District Courthouse here in New York. So, Ron, good morning. Let's start with this jury selection process. The judge here is using an anonymous jury. Walk us through what that means and why that decision was made. And did the fact that so many people have strong feelings about Trump make it hard for potential jurors to be sworn in?
Well, they selected a jury rather quickly in a few hours yesterday morning, so that was not a problem. But the judge is really concerned about their privacy, their security, threats, whether there are going to be attempts to harass and intimidate them. He also referenced the fact that the judge who's involved in the criminal proceeding against Donald Trump and that judge's family have faced threats. So he's very concerned about the overall climate here as this process continues. You'll remember when Mr. Trump made a first appearance a couple of weeks ago, there were protests on both sides, opponents, supporters of the former president, a lot of huge crowds, a lot of media attention. So the jury is anonymous but not sequestered, which means that they will assemble, for example, somewhere together away from the courthouse and be put on a bus and brought to the courthouse every day together, and they will leave in the same manner, again, for their security and their privacy. The judge went so far as to say, suggest that they didn't even use their real names when they were talking to each other, saying, for example, if you're Bill, be Joe for this week, or something to that effect, because he's very concerned about the overall climate. And yesterday he questioned Trump's attorneys quite strenuously, asking whether the former president would testify or not, because he's concerned about notifying courthouse security and the staff here, because it's certainly not a normal trial. And Trump's attorney was noncommittal, saying that he wanted to see how the week played out before he could determine whether or not Mr. Trump will testify.
Okay, so Ron, we heard opening arguments from both lawyers yesterday. What did we learn from Carroll's lawyers about some of the accusations she's making against Trump, and how did Trump's lawyer respond?
Well, he started off by saying, Carroll's attorney started off by saying that, admitting that she doesn't remember exactly when this happened, a date, year for that matter, month, season, but she remembers the details of exactly what happened. And that's what the opening statement focused on, describing the two of them meeting, chance encounter at Bergdorf Goodman department store on Fifth Avenue here in New York. Mr. Trump allegedly asking her to help him select a gift for a friend. They end up in the lingerie department. He asks her to try something on, she alleges, and that's when the attack allegedly happened in the dressing room. She says that her attorney says that she didn't come forward with this because she blamed herself, because she was afraid that Mr. Trump would destroy her and destroy her reputation. So she kept quiet. But she did tell two friends then, and we expect to hear from them as witnesses during the trial. So that was the crux of her opening arguments, that, again, a very vivid description of the attack, although, again, it's not with details of exactly when or the season, the month, the day when this all happened.
What can we expect to see today, and any idea how long this will last?
A week or two is what the judge has said to the jury when they were being selected that they could expect to spend here. Opening statements are finished, so the first witnesses. Who that will be, we're not sure. There's a lot of speculation that it will be Ms. Carroll herself. She has wanted to tell this story for more than 20 years. The alleged attack happened back in the mid-1990s. So we would, again, expect that she will be among the first witnesses, if not the first witness. We also, as I said, expect to hear from two friends who she told this story to when it happened. There are also a couple of other women who we expect to testify who are going to tell similar stories of being attacked allegedly by Mr. Trump on different occasions, one as far back as 1979, to try and show that there's been a pattern of behavior. So that's how we expect this to play out over the next week or so.
Ron Allen, thank you.
And later today, President Biden is meeting with South Korea's president to mark the 70-year alliance between both countries. Our very own Lester Holt sat down with President Yoon for an exclusive interview ahead of that summit.
In our exclusive interview, South Korea's President Yoon discussed a wide range of issues, including relations with the U.S., the recent leak of those classified U.S. intelligence documents, and the North Korean threat. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol in the U.S., set to celebrate a 70-year alliance, but now facing a new test, that American intel leak with what appear to be intercepts of conversations between South Korean officials. I know Washington and Seoul have suggested that maybe these tapes were modified, but it sounds like the U.S. was spying on South Korea. Is there any other explanation?
사실과 다른 내용들이 많이 있다는 보고를 받았습니다.
Lester, I also receive reports that there are things that are different from the facts about this incident. And I understand the investigation is going on by the U.S. government officials, and our security officials are closely consulting with their U.S. counterparts about this. I believe this matter is no reason to shake the ironclad trust supports the South Korea and U.S. alliance, because it is based on shared values like freedom.
Do friends spy on friends?
Generally speaking, I don't think that in the real world it is something that is prohibited in state affairs. The most important thing is the trust. When you have that trust, you don't get it shaken.
These intercepts, if they are what they appear, were conversations about Ukraine. Have you changed your stance as to whether your country would be willing to supply lethal weapons to Ukraine? And are you feeling pressure from the White House?
Lester, I can tell you that there is no such pressure. As for South Korea, we are joining forces with the international community to uphold freedom and human rights, and we are providing assistance to Ukraine. Therefore, if the time comes when we must also supply some lethal weapons to Ukraine, when the situation on the battlefront changes, there won't be a situation of South Korea turning away from the joint effort of the international community.
I also asked about recent North Korea missile tests.
Do you think that the U.S. is paying enough attention to deterring a North Korean attack on the South?
하고 있습니다. 지금 미국과
Yes, definitely. Since my inauguration, we're continuing our consultations with the United States about ways to enhance the effectiveness of the U.S. extended deterrence, and I can say that we're already making great strides in this realm. And in the past, when the threat was far away, maybe we might have some time. But now the threat is right at the front of our door.
He says the common goal?
The important thing is that we have to make North Korea never dare to resort to its nuclear weapons.
Then there's the flashpoint over Taiwan, with fears growing of a possible Chinese invasion.
You recently angered the Chinese by suggesting that Taiwan was really a global issue, much the way that North Korea is, as opposed to something just between China and Taiwan. Do you take back those words, or is that still your position?
대만 문제에 대한
So the Korean government's position toward the cross-strait, it has been consistent. We believe the peace and stability around the Taiwan Strait is really important, and we cannot agree with any attempts to change the status quo by force.
Part of my interview with South Korea's President Yoon.
Lester, thanks so much for that.
All right, let's now take a look at some severe wet weather impacting much of the country. Communities up and down the Mississippi River are experiencing what may only be the beginning of some major flooding as the river rises, all due to snow melt. Some towns are closing off riverside roads, schools and businesses, and they're placing sandbags along the waterfront.
Meteorologist Angie Lassman joins us now with flooding impacting other areas of the country as well, and more on your Morning News Now weather. Angie, good morning.
Morning, ladies. Yeah, we've got kind of two different things going on. We've got rapid snowmelt because of warmer than normal temperatures happening basically in the upper Midwest along the Mississippi River. And then we've got a storm system that has geared up and kind of taken shape and moving east now, that's bringing heavy rain to parts of the south and stretching basically from Colorado all the way to Tennessee. We see some of that unsettled weather, some rumbles of thunder working through places like Dallas and cities in Oklahoma here already this morning. And as we transition through the rest of your day, we're going to continue to see these storms impacting folks in these metro areas, specifically Dallas, a place where we could see some of these stronger storms take shape and potentially bring us some strong winds, hail, and tornadoes. I'll show you the specific area here in a moment. We also will be watching this continue to move to the east over the next couple of days and bring with it some heavy rain that stretches across the southeast and, of course, into the northeast and mid-Atlantic. Let's look at that severe threat, though, because this is the main thing that you want to pay attention to today. We've got 22 million people at risk for this, and it is centered over places like Dallas and Waco. A lot of folks living in this area, so there is a potential that we could see a couple strong tornadoes. That means EF2 or higher, the damaging hail up to 2 inches, or even higher than that, and some gusty winds up to 75 miles per hour. So we'll watch for that. This is the area that we're looking at for the best chance for strong tornado development, and this isn't just this afternoon. It'll also go into the evening hours tonight. So we know when the sun goes down, it gets a whole lot more dangerous for tornadoes, something that you're going to want to pay attention to if you live in these areas. Another thing is that we have a whole lot of rain working through in an area that needs it for sure, agriculturally speaking, and drought considered. We're looking at really the need for a whole lot of rain in Oklahoma City, places like Little Rock, but that means that happening all at once, guys, there's going to be a problem for some flash flooding today, so we'll monitor that through at least the next day or so as the system works through.
So much to follow during this unusual spring season, it seems.
It's been busy, hasn't it?
It has. Angie Lassman, thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.